Yeah, okay, so, Beetlejuice 2 is good. It's actually really good. And, fuck, I don't know what to do with that, honestly, because comedy sequels are almost never good. Tim Burton is only really good like 60 to 70% of the time, as opposed to good parts of bad movies. And, holy shit, yeah, comedies are hard to review when they're good, because, like, what do you do other than spoil the jokes for people? And then what's the point? So, I don't know how to fill this out other than to tell people, yeah, holy crap, a legasequel to like a late 80s, early 90s thing doesn't bloat itself down with nostalgia callbacks, even though it's filled with nostalgia callbacks. They feel earned. The returning actors return to their roles and it feels natural and good. The new actors are a lot of fun. There's great parts for Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe. Jenna Ortega as the new, basically, main character of this fits in perfectly to the whole Tim Burton vibe. It feels like Michael Keaton never left. It's funny. The new writers seem to understand exactly what made the original work. It doesn't overstay its welcome. There's an obvious setup for Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice to come out. Hopefully not after a 20-year delay. I'm gobsmacked. I don't know what to say about this other than it's good. Holy shit, yeah. I mean, I guess we can talk a little bit about why it works, which is that, again, it seems to understand why the original was good, which is the reason most good Tim Burton movies are good, which is that he's an odd guy, but for all of the build-up that he gets as, like, the mainstreaming guy of 80s, 90s goth culture stuff, I'm not sure if that's really the case. He's really more of, like, the Halloween store guy, and that's kind of what has always worked about this. The secret sauce to Tim Burton and his whole groove is that he's weird, but not that weird. And I think that's what people miss in a lot of this stuff. There's a different vibe to what Tim Burton has always done that's separate and apart from the later version of, like, dark and weird on purpose movies that were about intentional, performative alienation, you know, of people and characters, often protagonists, sometimes antagonists, trying to push the world away from themselves. Tim Burton movies are really about people who are just weird enough that they still somehow can't be accepted in very ordinary, somewhat pleasant worlds that they still want to be a part of anyway. Like, Edward Scissorhands is a funny but also sad movie where the sad part is that the weird guy, Edward, you know, he actually really wants to be part of the plastic flamingo kinda corny suburbs and still can't. And maybe the reason that Tim Burton has endured and even had kind of like a secondary career renaissance lately is that when you look around you in a world that now basically, even in the corniest American suburbs, a thing that is now part of plastic fantastic suburban Americana is starting to celebrate Halloween beginning on September 1st, Tim Burton kind of won. Like, you couldn't even do the story of Edward Scissorhands as a period piece anymore, because that dude would be a fucking superstar right off the bat now. Just, you know, with a different, less problematic actor, obviously. Speaking of which, the inciting incident for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is that Jeffrey Jones' character, the father from the original movie, has passed on, and that's basically the running gag of the movie. The funniest running gag that the movie has is repeatedly throwing to the fact that all of these characters are back together in the same place, specifically because a character death that has had to write Jeffrey Jones out of the movie because he can't be in movies anymore because sometimes movies shoot within walking distance of schools. Which you'd think would be in a bit of poor taste, and it kind of is, but it also never stops being funny. In any other case, you might call this kicking someone when they're down, but by all means, kick away. The premise being that this brings Winona Ryder's character, Catherine O'Hara's character as her mother, and Ryder's teenage daughter, played by Jenna Ortega, back to the original house from the first film that is now being set up as sort of a self-serving Halloween-themed funeral installation by O'Hara's character, so very much in keeping with the first film, through a series of what are admittedly plot contrivances, but the original Beetlejuice is basically a contrived supernatural comedy with much more unusual and Burton-y supernatural stuff going on, which is why it works. Beetlejuice re-enters the picture partly because he hasn't really stopped chasing Lydia around from the ghostly sidelines, and also because a character from Beetlejuice's own past, played by Monica Bellucci as the latest and possibly best yet incarnation of Tim Burton's very specific set of Bride of Frankenstein fetishes, has emerged to give him trouble, dovetailing with a secondary subplot about Ortega's character, who doesn't believe in ghosts, but of course will change her mind throughout the movie, all sort of coming together in the convoluted, but not really, because part of the joke of Beetlejuice is that these rules are arbitrary and don't really matter, storyline that works on its own as a character piece and an excuse for Michael Keaton to come up, do Beetlejuice stuff, but not overstay his welcome, much like the first movie, which, lest you forget, Beetlejuice is only really in about not even 20 minutes of the original Beetlejuice. He's in a little bit more of this one, but still not as much as the other main characters. They really did understand why the first movie works, so Beetlejuice shows up to be exactly as funny as he can be, and not a moment longer. And it basically plays out as a series of gags, as characters run around through afterlife stuff, pratfalls, comedy, a bit of plot setup to build us up for what they clearly plan to be a third movie, but not in a to-be-continued sense, in a look, if this does well, this is probably going to do well, because it's pretty damn good, but not in a way that cheapens this one. And yeah, it works. Like I said, comedies are hard to review, especially when they're good, and this one's hard to review because it's really good. I had a great time with this. I don't know if it's as good as the first one. It can't really be better because the first one was this complete surprise out of nowhere, like, what the hell even is this? But it really is surprising that something that is doing the same kind of stuff that every other tired, annoying nostalgia legasequel, like the fucking Ghostbusters things, or The Flash, also featuring Michael Keaton, where they just bring stuff out of the closet and say, hey, remember this, remember this, remember this, and they really do all of the Beetlejuice stuff. Hey, remember when he bugged his eyes out? Hey, remember when he bugged his face out? Hey, remember when he said this and said this? Hey, remember when they sang a song? Like, they do all this stuff, but it works, and it's not too much of it, and it's in the right places, and it's organic. This stuff almost never works. Tim Burton only even works at being Tim Burton just about half the time. Even Michael Keaton, God bless him, sometimes just good instead of great. Everyone really cooks here. As a guy born in the 80s, I am obligated to always say that Winona Ryder is perfect in everything. She's really good here. Jenna Ortega remains one of the best young actresses of her generation. Catherine O'Hara is a riot. There's a lot of surprising people showing up here. Willem Dafoe, always. When is Willem Dafoe not good? Monica Bellucci makes an amazing turn in this. Again, like Beetlejuice, not in as much of the movie as you would expect, but makes quite an impression when she's here. Here's how good this is. We actually get Beetlejuice's origin story. And if you wanted to tell me something that would make me think this movie would suck, you would have told me they're going to tell us Beetlejuice's origin story. And not only is it cool, it's one of the funniest parts of the movie, a great reference to cool film history stuff, and funny as hell, and one of the best things that Tim Burton has put to screen in maybe his career. It's just a riot. This is a terrific film. Much like the first one, it is a slight, almost inconsequential thing, but for the fact that there's great actors and great comedians doing cool stuff, and an imaginative filmmaker just throwing it out all onto the field. So call this an 8 out of 10. But if you were hoping for the Beetlejuice sequel to be a good movie, holy shit, it is. Yeah, 8 out of 10, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Check it out.